Good morning and welcome back to the Good Morning Minute podcast. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and I'm excited to kick off season 2 with a theme that touches every single one of us: relationships. That's right, friends. Relationships are at the heart of our human experience. They shape who we are, how we grow, and how we show up in the world. Whether it's family, friends, romantic connections, or even the relationships we have with ourselves, each one carries lessons, challenges, and moments of pure joy. This season, we'll sit down with incredible guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and insights on building, nurturing, and even healing relationships. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive into conversations that inspire connection and growth. We've set the stage for today's conversation on relationships. I am thrilled to introduce our special guest today. She brings a unique perspective and a wealth of experience to the table, and I know her insights will leave you feeling inspired and equipped to navigate your own relationships with more intention and understanding. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Becca Stackhouse-Morson. That's a long name there, but Becca, I want to say welcome to the Good Morning Minute podcast. I am excited to have you as a guest. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. If you would, Becca, just go ahead and give our audience a little bit about yourself and the interest that you're bringing to the table when it's talking about relationships.
Okay, I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. So, I am Becca, and I am the owner and creator of Stacked Intent. And I created Stacked Intent with a clear mission to really help individuals become the best and most authentic version of themselves. And so, I do this through my family life education business. And I founded it to be able to provide tools, strategies, and be able to inspire individuals on what self-care and personal growth looks like. And I do that through helping you understand relationships are so much more than just romantic, which is a lot of times what our society has had kind of put in our minds when we talk about relationships. And so I'm so excited to bring that to the table of helping you kind of think about it in maybe a little different way.
Well, let's jump into it then, Becca. Uh, so, yes, relationships is a very broad topic, and you're right. A lot of us go immediately to significant others and romantic partnerships and all those love ideas, but you're absolutely right. Relationships is so much more. So, can you kind of give us like the different makeups of relationships because and help us understand kind of what you're going to talk about today?
Yeah, so relationships, when we think about those, well, the first relationship that we have to have starts with ourselves. And so we can have an unhealthy relationship with ourselves just like we can other people, of not listening to our own needs, not understanding what we need, not understanding and vocalizing that. And so it really starts there. It starts with finding it important to hear your own voice. It's important to hear your needs. It's important to vocalize your needs. And that's where I really believe that relationship starts. And when we are able, it's been shown that if we can take care of ourselves, then it really helps us as we flow into the other spaces. And so that relationship with self starts us, and then it's able to flow into the relationship that we have with our partner, which is our romantic relationship. It's able to flow into the relationship that we've got with our parents or our children. And then it can also be able to flow into the relationship that we've got with a coworker or a boss or something of that nature. But it's also looking at relationships not only with people, but also with things like we have a relationship with our finances, of how, whether we feel like budget's a bad word or we're content with working with a budget, or we have a relationship with our exercise, of how we bring that into our day to day. We also have a relationship with our nutrition, of how we eat and what we eat and bring into our daily eating. That all of that is some form of a relationship.
I like this breakdown. So what I'm hearing is the foundation is the relationship with yourself, because that is what makes the decisions, especially when we're talking about relationships with finances or relationship with healthy eating or just your own personal self-care. If you have an idea that isn't a positive one, and it can be, I don't know, something like, I'm never going to be as healthy as I want to be. And so when you make the decisions to eat, you definitely reaffirm that belief about yourself. And so that guides those decisions in the relationships. I is that am I on the right path here? Am
Yeah.
I thinking correctly?
That very
Oh,
much is. And if it's not something, if you're not aware of what relationship is and you're not aware of the relationships that you're connecting with things like money and like our money habits, a lot of those are established by the age of 7. And so, like, if you don't go back and think of what your household was when you were 7 and before and kind of learning that relationship with money, you're going to have some of that. And you can change the narrative, but you have to be active in changing their narrative. The same thing happens with nutrition. A lot of your habits are developed by that age of 7, and so you have to be active in it. You've got to, if you want to change what your behavior is or your connection is, then you just have to be active in making that relationship a little bit different.
hmm. So I mean, you're telling me these things, and I'm just kind of reflecting on my own childhood. I remember waking up early in the morning and my mom being in the living room doing and I grew up in the 80s, so seven I was born in 76. So I remember these videos or these little workouts called the 20-minute workout. And so she was always working out, but then she was on a roller coaster of gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight. But there's a lot of self-talk when it came to
Mm.
negative self-talk when it came to appearance. And so I can see how that has influenced me as an adult, but definitely even before the age of 10, because I mean, I'm looking in my as a young girl, I'm looking at myself going, oh, pinching the skin, and I could lose it here and stuff like that. And so I see the influences. So how does someone come out of that? How do we reframe it for ourselves to make a different impression so that we can change relationships with the things like eating healthy, or our finances. I think some of the things there are like money is the root to all evil and stuff like that. So how do we change that for ourselves?
You have to acknowledge it. So, like what you acknowledged that, oh, these could contribute. And so they contribute to as an adult. I mean, like, I think about it as a child and like finances. Finances in my house, it was never a bad topic. It was never a topic that was avoided. Now, my mom handles finances one way than my dad does. And my husband says that I'm a combination of my parents when it comes to finances. And he says it's really funny when they start to conflict with each other. Because it's like, my mom's like, it's fine, we'll do it and figure it out later. My dad's like, if you really wanted my dad to help with something growing up, you brought him a full spreadsheet of why it would cost this much, what it would be, how you'd compare it at different places. And so you just have to acknowledge what it is and what behaviors do you like? Do you like the way you do it? Or would you like it to be different? And if you want it to be different, then you have to start looking at the habits of what helps make those different. So, like exercise would be, did you like the at-home videos and then the comparisons that came? Well, if you didn't really, then you just have to start slowly. And it's not something that'll happen overnight. You have to slowly start changing the narrative. And it'll shift over time. And then one day you'll look and it'll be a little bit different and you'll like it. So you just have to, it's one of those things you have to decide what you want it to look like and then reverse engineering backwards of this is what I want it to look like. Okay, I'm not there. What are going to be the steps that are going to take me there and give me that relationship to be there?
Mm. So you almost have to envision it first and almost see yourself as that person you want to be before you, and then you come back to reality and you're like, okay, what are the steps to get there? What would a person like I just pictured do to get to that point. So what are some of the strategies you help offer the people you work with in your coaching business or your education business? What are some of those methods?
Some of those methods are so in the online course suite that I've got, I have 4 different courses that are available. One starts with building a relationship with yourself.
Mhm.
And that came from a question that you can actually still answer, but it came from a curiosity of mine of you're in a relationship and there's so many people that lose parts of themselves, either in a friendship, a romantic relationship, as a child. Like you just lose part of yourself. And so my question to people became, how do you not let yourself vanish in your relationships? And it was one that I asked a couple of people, and they all gave me different answers. And so then my curiosity got the better of me, and I ended up asking like over 200 people, and they all responded. But what was really cool was all the responses were different. People either knew exactly how they didn't let themselves vanish in their relationships, or people could identify how they had let themselves vanish of my exercise just became less important because I got busy, or my partner didn't like that about me, so I just kind of let it go, or like different things along that line. But in all of those answers, I was able to find 6 themes. And so I built a course that's just a free resource on my website that's around that. It's helping you find the focus on what's unique about yourself. It's looking at your financial independence. It's looking at boundaries because boundaries is a big one. And then it's looking at self-love, and then it's looking at respect. And so it's finding that relational balance with yourself. And so that's one of the ways I help people is have a resource that has a guide that also has a video component to it. And it just walks you through kind of how to build that relationship with yourself. If you've never started, because if you've never started or really acknowledged your relationship with yourself, that can be a very scary place to go. Because you have to be willing sometimes to be in an uncomfortable place to build a relationship that you just love to wake up to your everyday. And then I've got a few other courses that help with that. And one looks directly at the relationship with finances, and then one looks at the relationship with time. So looking at how we turn our time in from chaos into more of our time working for ourselves.
Hmm. I like that. And it hits all these ideas of, through my head and whatnot. But you talked specifically about boundaries and uh, love and respect. How how hard is it for us to give ourselves personal like personal boundaries, respect, um, and I feel the word discipline as well because you have to be disciplined in your effort to be better at relationshiping with yourself in order to affect the other elements and relationships in your life. So how hard is that for the people, some of the people that you worked with, and what are some of the changes in mindset that you've seen to help them get through those barriers and those challenges so that they are becoming successful in these aspects of their lives like finances and just fitness and all the things.
Well, when you talk about boundaries, that one I believe is hard for people depending on what you grew up in. And it depends on how boundaries were seen. If you were a child that grew up and you were allowed to give your own boundaries, a lot of times those are the people that have an easier time giving them as an adult. Because boundaries aren't there really to hurt people. They're to help people understand what your I mean, if you look at a one way I've heard it phrased is like, okay, you have a house and you've built a fence. And the fence it helps keep your neighbors out, but that doesn't mean your neighbors aren't ever allowed inside your fence. They're just allowed inside when you invite them over instead of them just showing up unannounced. And so setting boundaries it helps you to have some safety and security within relationships. It helps to build that trust, respect, and safety. And then it also might help protect some well-being. And boundaries it's one of those that can be a touchy topic. And it's one that I had a workshop one time, and there was a lady that when we started our conversation on boundaries, she really didn't like it and she didn't understand it. But by the time we walked out of our workshop at the end of the day, she really appreciated the conversation because she understood why certain boundaries had been placed on her by certain family members. She understood where they were coming from better. And so that's what
Mm,
boundaries are. They're there to help you set up. I mean, it's like, it can be like, okay, my time with my husband. If we're going to go have a date night and I sit there and I'm on the phone the whole time, well, then my husband doesn't feel like we actually had our date night. And so it's that boundary of, sorry, I can't be on the phone right now, but I'll call you back at a different time because I'm doing this. Giving people simple reasons is helpful. And boundaries are set, they're set through a reflection, a communication, and then you do have to be assertive. And so that reflection is considering what's important to you, what your need is there, and how that action is going to impact others. Your communication on it is that need and that feeling of that respect, and then setting your boundaries and standing up for it. And so you have to accept your own boundary. If you don't accept your boundary, nobody else is going to. So, like for me in my life, my exercise is really important. And so I do jujitsu. And so that's done at specific times in the day because there's class time set for it. Well, one of my boundaries on that is I'm doing this at 11 o'clock every day. So from 11 to 1, I'm not available Monday through Thursday. So, like, if I'm going to go to lunch, it's going to be on a Friday because that's when I don't have class. Or like, and so that's a boundary. This is that time for my exercise. And so I'm not going to let life take over. That's setting a boundary. So it doesn't even have to be that complicated, but you have to be okay with it. And if you're not okay with it, then other people aren't going to necessarily be okay with that boundary. And that falls right into the respect of you have to respect it too.
that's exactly what I was thinking because it's so much of self-love and self-respect because if you waver on your boundaries, then you're not respecting the things that you're putting in place for yourself. You're not respecting your time. You're not respecting the efforts. And then you go right back into what you don't want. So I totally understand it. So how does discipline, how does that factor into everything? I mean, I would I see it. I'm like, oh yeah, you have to stay diligent. You said assertive, but I also feel like that's a part of practicing discipline too.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the ability to accept your own boundary and being disciplined to follow through even when it's uncomfortable. Because
Mm.
you may have that friend or that person that's like, oh, I mean, if I keep using the jujitsu, my class is 11 to 1, excuse me, then it's no, you're fine. You can just skip today. But that's not what I've set out for what my day is. Like we can do it at another time. That's not a time that works for me. And so it's maintaining that discipline of no, this is what it looks like for me. This is what that boundary is for me. I mean, that could also be, I mean, if you take it down the financial route, if you're trying to budget and your budget allows you to go out to eat once a week because going out to eat, you're not going to go out to eat for less than $20, really. I don't know what you're eating if you do. Like, it's really a challenge to do that. And so,
Mhm.
if your budget only allows you to go out to eat once a week and you've gone out with friends on Tuesday night, and then more friends, they ask you again on Wednesday and then Thursday, that's another boundary of I can only do this once a week. Like, that I'm working on my financial goals and this is what I'm able to do. That's a boundary. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. That doesn't mean that it doesn't sound good to go somewhere on Thursday night. But if you're really disciplined for your goals and you want to succeed at what, I mean, because it's very easy to charge a credit card and swipe. We don't necessarily always see the money we spend now. But if you don't want to end up in credit card debt, then that's how you're budgeting your time and you're budgeting your money to be able to stay disciplined. So it's being okay with the decisions you make and then being willing to stick with them, even when other people don't understand.
I get it. I get it. And I agree. I think that is absolutely, you're putting yourself first. So you put yourself first. And I know some people struggle with that because some people want to be perceived as the nice person. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be ugly. So how do you overcome those, you know, ideology of I don't want to be the bad person and say no. There's a and no, saying no is a boundary within itself. And often when I'm teaching, I say, when you say no, it just makes your yeses more powerful and more meaningful as well. So
Oh yeah.
how do you help advise in situations like so?
Well, I've also heard when you say no to other people, you're saying yes to yourself in a way. So when you
Mhm.
say yes to lots of other people, you're saying no to yourself. So you're saying no somewhere. So it's kind of choosing who do you want to say no to. Um, and so that's the advice. And find people that can be your cheerleader. Like
Mhm.
if it's not your circle of people that can be your cheerleader, find somebody, whether it's a coach that can help you, or it's a podcast you listen to, or it's a new friend group that's working towards that same kind of goal. Find some people that can be your cheerleader because that does help. We have to have some cheerleaders sometimes because it can be very discouraging, especially if our world of the people we're around doesn't find it fun for us or isn't excited to encourage us or doesn't understand why we're working on this exercise goal or this financial goal, then that'd be my advice. Find a cheerleader, whether it's a coach that you find, whether it's some new friends, and that doesn't mean you get rid of the old friends. It just means these are the friends that help encourage you towards that goal. Whether it's a book or a podcast. I mean, I find lots of encouragement through different podcasts I listen to, through books that I read. And so it's find some encouragement.
So, Becca, let me ask you, because you have such wisdom, just in the things you're sharing today. Where did this all become like relevant for you? When did it all just come together and you're like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. This is what I practice, and now I want to teach others. Like when was that moment for you?
I think it came, so my business and my career my education's all played together. Um, I started babysitting as a teenager and then I lifeguarded. And all those kind of bring some of this together. And then I went to college and I got my bachelor's in social sciences with my certification for family life education. I took all the coursework to get my certification, and then I got my master's in family studies. And then after that, I worked at a summer camp for a summer. And then I was a county extension agent. And as a county extension agent, I worked with our middle school kids in our public school system. And I mean, when you're in a highly impoverished county and you're working in the public school system, the middle schoolers have a lot of exposure to life, a lot more than sometimes other kids. And these kids just sometimes they would say things that were like, "Oh, but I have to have a romantic relationship. Oh, but I have to have this." Or one time one little girl goes, "Well, I have to have a baby to be able to be." And it's like, "But no, you don't." And so my mom asked me at some point during that of, "Why? Why you?" And it's because if not me, then who? And so I found this drive of really wanting to help people understand that when you fall in love with yourself and you fall in love with the life that you want it to be, then the right people are going to come along and come along in your life. And that doesn't mean that some of it's not lonely. That doesn't mean that some of it's not hard, but it means that you truly love the life you live every single day and you allow that to be changing. And so that's where a lot of it came from, was really starting to I loved working with the middle school kids because they genuinely, once you break through that I don't want to be here, they really started to have fun and enjoy, because it was all relationship education I was talking to them about. And so it's just that's where a lot of it came from. It came from those kids and really seeing, and then people in my life, friends, my family, of like, huh, so these are the concepts of like me and my sister both have never seen much relevance in dating, of like, yeah, it would be great to have a partner in life, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sacrifice who I am for it. Whereas we watch some of our friends go from guy to guy to guy to guy because they had to have a boyfriend. They couldn't be by themselves. And it was like, but you can have your own passions. You can have your own life. Like you can love your own life. And so that's where some of it came from of like, if you really love yourself first, having a partner is not going to fill that. Like you're always going to have a void if you don't find who you are and what you love about yourself. And so that a lot of it's come from that of like really wanting to help people understand that finding that love for themselves really helps in finding that passion of how you like your life.
So, what I'm hearing you say is the foundation for any healthy relationship in whatever aspect that is self-love.
Hmm.
When when you understand who you are as a person and you understand what drives you, motivates you, and inspires you, then it just enhances the relationships that you do have outside of yourself because you're acting with intentionality, you're acting with purpose, and you're being very attuned to how it magnifies your own self-love. Am I
Hmm.
on the right path there?
Yeah, that's very much it. And it helps. So I'm married now, and my husband, I'm able to tell him sometimes what I need. Of like, I've journaled my whole life, like ever since I was little. Well, when I growing up and on into my 20s, I did it at night. Like I did it before I went to bed. Well, as we got married, it was really hard to do at night because that was the time that we had that we got to sit down and talk. But I noticed when I struggled to get it in, I struggled in my day because journaling is just one of those things that allows you to release your thoughts somewhere you may never read again and nobody else ever has to see, but it allows you to get them out there. And so I had to find a new time to do that. So now I do it after he goes to work and I have my time to sit there and do it. But that was an adjustment. And so,
Mm,
but I was able to tell him, I need this. And so he kind of helped me figure out when in my day that it would start to fit. And so that was knowing myself of I need this, but it doesn't work at the time that I've done it my whole life. And so where else can go in? And that's what happens when we go through transitions in our life. We got to figure out where it can replug in sometimes.
mm, that's so true. Um, and I guess that kind of goes into the time management education that you offer too. But you really do have time for yourself and to love. And just because something changes in your surroundings doesn't mean that you can give up something that you enjoy or anything like that. But you definitely just need to figure out how to rework it into what you have new. And so I love that. Becca, if there's somebody out there that's just like, okay, this sounds great and all, what kind of inspiration could you leave our listeners with, or maybe just a bit of wisdom, maybe some advice for someone out there that's really struggling, that would get them to just kind of open up and say, okay, I need to do something.
That it's never too late to rediscover something. It's never too late to bring something back that you really miss about yourself. And it's okay to sit in the uncomfortable sometimes, because that is what it is when you're either rediscovering or discovering for the first time something to love about yourself. There might be some uncomfortability to it. And so it's being okay in that. But that's where you might need to find a friend, a family member, a coach, that's where you need to find somebody that might be able to help support you through it. So when you really feel down, you're able to really find that encouragement.
Beautiful. Well, it's been a delight, Becca, to have you on the show. If someone wanted to get in touch with you outside of this podcast, how could they do so?
You can find me on social media platforms at Stacked Intent. And then you can also go to my website, which is stackedintent.com, and you can connect with me there either through the contact page or you can join my email list and you can be a part of the weekly email that I send out that gives you some of those tips, self-care and organization tips for your life.
Beautiful. Well, I want to thank you again, Becca, for being a guest and helping just educate our listeners on self-love and how that leads to better and healthier relationships in all aspects of your life, not just romantic relationships, but we're talking about your money, and everybody knows what that what that feels like for sure. You definitely need money to live. So I just thank you again and want to say to everyone out there, you know what that means. It's a wrap. I'm Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.